Hello children. In this video, we will discuss the first natural resource which we have to study in detail, that is forests and wildlife. What are forests, bache? A large area or region which comprises a large or numerous number of trees in it, that is known as a forest. Various living organisms, various wild animals, organisms living in the forest is referred as wildlife. And they are the natural resources for us. Forest has multiple uses. For example, they have enormous role in the economical purpose, economical use. Many industries like lark industry, timber industry, sports equipment industry, medicinal industry, that will depend on forests. Many forest products we obtain from the forest, and those forest products will have a value of industrial purpose. So they perform a very crucial role in our economical purpose or economical use. Second is climate control. As we know, the transpiration which occurs through forest helps in maintenance of water cycle. And that water cycle will directly or indirectly controls the climate of a particular area. More forest, more greenery means appropriate rains in that region. For example, tropical rainforests, they have an appropriate amount of rain because they have a large number of forests cover in it. Next, regulatory purpose. Forest helps in the regulation of temperature, atmospheric pressure for bringing up the rain. They also release oxygen in the atmosphere. They also absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So they somehow regulate the environment, helps in regulating the environment. That is their regulatory purpose. So these are the purposes, or these are the roles of the forest in our life. Next, bache, there is certain historical aspect related to the forest cover present in our country. 33% of our country's land was flourished with the forest. But when the British came here and ruled India for hundreds of years, then what they do is they cut the forest and will grow the monocultures of teak, sal, and pine trees. What do you mean by monocultures? Whensoever in a given area or given land, given piece of land, only one kind of crop or one kind of trees or plants are grown, that is known as monocultures. So what the Britishers they cut the forest and convert those forest area, those forest land into the monocultures of teak, sal, and pine trees. Why? Because these trees have enormous industrial potential. They are used extensively in the industries. So, to elaborate their industrial spread in our country, what they do is they grow the monocultures of teak, sal, and pine in our forest area. By cutting the forest area, by cutting the trees, that will also affect the wildlife present in them. That will destroy it. So that's how they play a significant role in the destruction of forest. Later on, in our infrastructural developments, in the formation of roads, to increase the agricultural land, to make certain, lakes, artificial lakes. We are keep on destroying our forest lands nowadays as well. So that is what you have to study, as this is a small explanation of that is given in your NCERT book. After that, we'll study a very, very important topic and a question for your board exam: stakeholders of forest. What do you mean by stakeholders? An organism, group of people, or an organization which have a concern or a role related to a natural resource are known as a stakeholders. There are total 4 stakeholders of a forest. The first ones are local people. The people who are residing in the forest or nearby the forest are totally dependent on the forest products. For example, they use herbs for medicines. They use shredded leaves for the fodder of their domestic animals. For various, hunting equipments, they use the wooden articles from the forest itself. Next thing, bache, they are totally dependent on the forest for their food, for their medicines, for their basic needs. For example, they require bamboo sticks to cover up their roofs of their huts or whatsoever the type of habitat in which they are living. So, for all these things, the local people use the forests. Second ones, the government of India. The largest stakeholder or the biggest stakeholders among the force. Why is it so? Because the government of India or the forest department in the particular government will holds the land, and on that land that forest is present. So they are the major contributors in the stakeholders of the forest. In fact, they regulate the forest. This stakeholder also plays a very important role in the destruction. As the illegal cuttings of the forest trees for various purposes, for various timber purposes, the industrial increment or the development in our country will lead to destruction of the forest. And that is all because of the permission of the government. Third, industrialists. As I explained to you, bache, many industries like lac industry, timber industry, sports equipment industry, medicinal industry depend on the forest products. So these industrialists are the third stakeholders of the forest. They do not have any concern whatsoever possible for the forest. When if forest ki koi chinta nahi hai, they are only, related to the forest. They are only connected to the forest for their commercial purpose, for economical purpose, just for the sake of money, what they made from those forest products. That's it. Otherwise, they do not have any concern whatsoever possible for the forests. And the fourth, and the very, very important ones, that is social enthusiasts or conservationists. सामाजिक कार्यकर्ता, सामाजिक संरक्षण करता, which will conserve the forest. Either they are connected to the forest through their religious beliefs, or they have concern for the environment. And those social enthusiasts and conservationists do not have any economical relation with the forest. They just want to protect them, either because of their religious beliefs or just because to save or to protect the environment. So these are the four stakeholders of the forest which are present in our surroundings, or which are present residing along with us. Now we will discuss certain cases where social enthusiasts plays a very critical role in the protection of forests. The first case which we are going to study is the case of khejdi trees. Bishnoi community in the Rajasthan have religious concern for khejdi trees. They have certain religious beliefs for not cutting the khejdi trees. So they are religiously related, connected to these khejdi trees. Once in 1731, the king of Jodhpur ordered his men to cut the khejdi trees in the outskirts of the Jaipur and Jodhpur for its timber purpose in its palace. किंग था बच्चे, उसने क्या ऑर्डर किया अपने लोगों को कि आप जाएं और खेजड़ी ट्रीज को कट कर लाएं. किसके लिए कट कर लाएं? फॉर द टिम्बर पर्पस. देन व्हाट हैपेंड बच्चे? द बिश्नोई कम्युनिटी इन द लीडरशिप ऑफ Miss Amrita Devi Bishnoi her three daughters in total 363 people will go there and oppose. They oppose that cutting. How? They make the groups by joining hands and stand around the trees, and thus the men which were sent by the king to cut those trees will be pushed back. And that's how they, even ready to sacrifice their lives to stop the cutting of those religious khejdi trees. So, in the honor of this, the government of India will insist a prize on the basis of Amrita Devi, that is Amrita Devi Award for conservation of nature and natural resources. That award is given to the person every year or in a few years who play a very immense role in the protection of forests. So this is the case of khejdi trees, where the local people will go there and protect the trees, protect the forest products because of their religious beliefs. That is the case of khejdi trees. Likewise, once in the Himalayan region, the shepherds plays a very important role. How? In the alpine meadows present in the Himalayan region in our country, grass grows in summer season, and the shepherds will take their flock of sheep to that alpine meadows in the early summer season. बच्चे अपने जो भेड़ों का झुंड होता है बच्चे, उसे अर्ली समझ में वो कहां ले जाते थे? Up the mountains. The sheep used to graze that grass, and then they bring back down. That grazed grass will again regrow next season. But when that Himalayan region, when that alpine meadows will come under a protected area, those shepherds were not allowed to go there. उसके बाद क्या हुआ बच्चे, जब गवर्नमेंट बन गई इंडिया की, तो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने क्या किया, उसे एक प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया बना दिया. प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज आर द एरियाज वेयर सर्टेन ह्यूमन एक्टिविटीज ईदर कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड और कंप्लीटली अबॉलिश्ड. या तो बच्चे कुछ कॉम्प्रोमाइज करते हैं ह्यूमन एक्टिविटीज के साथ, या पूरी तरह से बैन कर देते हैं. दोज आर नोन एज प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज. तो व्हेन दैट alpine meadows will considered as a protected area, the shepherds are not allowed to go there to graze their flock of sheep. So what was observed, that grass will keep on growing and become that much taller that it keep on destroying its regeneration. ग्रास बच्चे कोई खाने वाला तो था ही नहीं, तो वो इतनी बड़ी होती जा रही जो होने लगी कि उसका रीजनरेशन पॉसिबल नहीं हो पाया. So that will also tells us that how and in what sense these local people will play a key role in maintenance of the forest. The next case which we have to discuss is Chipko Andolan, that is also referred as Hug the Tree movement. What happens in this movement, bache? In 1970s, some contractor men will go to will go near the rainy village in Garhwal region of Uttarakhand to cut the trees. Contractor allowed his men to go there and cut the trees for various industrial purposes. But the females of the village, as the men folk were out to work, the females of that village will go at the site of cutting and hug the trees. They also demanded that before cutting the trees, the contractor man must have to cut them. So they even, ready to sacrifice their life for the production of trees. Just like the Amrita Devi Bishnoi case. They hug the trees. And if the contractor man pull them back, the other group who's standing aside will go there and hug the trees. So this keep on continuing, and then the contractor men will go away. They do not cut the trees. This movement was very, that movement was obviously not named by these females as Chipko Andolan. As people know about that movement, then they give it a name, and that name was Chipko Andolan. That means hug the tree. And by hugging it, protect it. Then, in 1990s, Sundar Lal Bahuguna and R.K. Prasad emphasized on this Chipko Andolan in the United Nations. And henceforth, this Andolan, this movement will be a global movement. It will be known to each and every country present in the globe. So these two, put a large emphasis on this Chipko Andolan. This movement is also flourished in Karnataka as Apiko movement. This Chipko movement in Karnataka is referred as Apiko movement. This movement includes stop the cutting of the trees, regeneration of the trees from where we have already cut it, and the rational use of the forest products. Rational means appropriate use. Do not exploit the forest products. And that is the Apiko movement, which was held in Karnataka. It has three, Kannada words as well: Uliso, Bilisu, and Balasu. That means stop cutting, regenerate them, and rational use of the forest and the forest products. So that is the case of Chipko Andolan or Hug the Tree movement. Now we'll discuss the last case and a very important one for your board exam. People's participation in the conservation of forest, or the case of Sal forest in West Bengal. In 1972, the West Bengal Forest Department, was very fed up in reviving the Sal forests. How? The Sal forests keep on degrading by the excessive moisture, by the leaves which are fallen down, they get degraded and ultimately they degrade the trees of the Sal. The monoculture of Sal gets degraded continuously at a very rapid rate. All the methods, all the procedures which had done by the government till that year was in vain. Then the government, applies or adapt the plan by a far-seeing forest officer named as A.K. Banerjee, who did a tremendous job in the protection of the Sal forest in the Arabari region of Midnapur district. What he does is, he involved the local people in the participation. He involved the local people and allowed them the 25% of the total harvest of silviculture done by them. Silviculture is the culture of the cultivation and the growing of large trees, is known as silviculture. He allowed the people to come, merge with the government and grows the tree. He gives the 25% of the final harvest, final produce to those local people, as well as he allows them to collect fuel wood, shredded leaves, fine twigs to these local people, so that they can use these things for their fuel in their houses. So that will, create an enthusiastic layoff towards the conservation of Sal forests. So this plan is used by the government, and the A.K. Banerjee's effort will help in the protection of 1,272 hectares of Sal forest, which was in 1983 worth of 12.50 crores, and at that time it is a very large amount of money, and it's a large area which was protected by that locals' participation or people's participation. So that's how the local people may also plays a very key role in the protection of the various kind of forest, and this A.K. Banerjee case is a perfect example to understand this.